Hey guys, this is the lesson for understanding the division of fractions. We are going to be learning why we multiply by a reciprocal when we are dividing fractions. We're going to be doing that by showing models today. So we'll be using both a tape diagram and a number line. Our curriculum does call it a bar model. The terminology I use is the tape diagram. So if you hear me switching between the two, that's what I mean. Okay. So I'll talk about here. Tape diagram is just something like this where we're, chopping it up and that's 1/4. That would be a tape diagram or a bar model. And then we have a number line 0 to 1 where we have 1/4, 2/4, and so forth, right? Okay, so that's what we're looking at today. Alrighty. Let's go ahead and look at our start problem. How many halves and fourths are in each number? So really what we're looking at here is kind of a ratio table, how we looked at earlier on. For every half, I have 1, and for fourths, I have 2. So it's just keeping them consistent for you to think about if I'm counting by halves, how many it will take to get to that next benchmark number. For fourths, I'll need 2, 4, and 6. So just a little chart there for you. All right, we're going to go to number 1 here. It says that Uma lives near a path that is half a mile long. She wants to know how many times she needs to run the path in order to run 6/4 miles. So we're going to complete a bar model to show how many halves make 1/4. So they had here a different model, but I didn't think it was very intuitive. So we're just going to go ahead and start off by writing this first value here, 6/4. So I know that 6/4 is going to be more than 1 whole because it's bigger than 4/4. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a model that shows 2 whole. Let me actually change my pen color here. Okay, so I'm just going to draw a bar model. Sorry, I'm very bad at doing beautiful, beautiful lines. So actually, let's do about here. Okay, so this will count as, this whole thing will be 1 whole, and this will be 1 whole. And since we're talking about fourths, that's what we'll split it up as. So I'm going to start with half into fourths, half into fourths. So altogether here, because I have 2 whole, that's really 8/4. But what we need to shade in is 6/4 because that's how much she wants to run. So I'm going to go ahead and do that with this green here. So she wants to run 6/4. Okay, so what we need to figure out though is how many halves it's going to take her, how many half miles it's going to take her to run those 6/4. So what we need to figure out is what is the equivalent fraction to a half. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to draw over here. Here's a half, right? 1/2. If I were to think about that in terms of fourths, I would need to decompose it into fourths. So now I have 1, 2 out of those fourths. So 1/2 is the same thing as 2/4. So that means for every 2/4 is 1/2. So here's half a mile, and half a mile. So how many half miles is she going to have to run? Well, 3, because I've done 3 jumps here. I've divided 6/4 into half groups. Okay. Looking at this next part, it says to use a model to write a division equation that represents the situation. So we started with 6/4, and then the jumps that we did, what we counted by in the red portion, I'll show you here, we're dividing it into groups of half. So that's going to be my divisor. Okay. And then it also says to write a multiplication equation. So I know that if I write it backwards here, this 3 for my quotient can also be multiplied times this to come out to be 6/4. So if I do 3/1 times 1/2, I would end up getting 3/2, which is the same as 6/4. So 6/4, if we were to, these two are equivalent. Okay. All right. Now let's look Let me go ahead and do that. So 3 times 1/2 is 6/4. Okay, so now Uma needs to run the half-mile path. How many times? We said 3. All right, so the second one says to complete the model to show how many 3/4 makes 6/4. So just like we did last time, we're going to go ahead and make 2 whole. I'm actually going to draw. I'm going to use this guy. I should have been using this the whole time. Okay, and then we'll do a red line to show the middle. That's 2 whole. Okay, and then we'll do it into fourths. So 1/2 fourths, 1/2 fourths. And then we need to do 6/4. So I'm going to go ahead and fill that in as 6/4. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And now it wants me to count by 3/4. And I don't have to do any converting here because we're still talking about fourths. So I just need to group it by thirds, right? Or by 3/4. So I'm going to do here is I'm going to grab 3/4. There's a 3/4. And another 3/4. So how many groups of 3/4 did I put it into? 2. So I can go ahead and write that as 6/4 is what we started, divided by groups of 3/4, and I know I got 2. Okay, now we're going to show 4/6 divided by 1/6, and we're going to use a number line this time. So this one has already been started for us. We have 0 to 1 whole, and because we are working with the denominator 6, we're going to mark 1 whole is the same thing as 6/6. So we're just going to go ahead and continue writing those. So 1/6, 2/6, 3/6, 4/6, 5/6, and then 1 whole 6/6. So it says use the number line to show 4/6. So here I am at 4/6. Okay, divided by 1/6. So I need to count how many times I'm hopping 1/6 to get to 4/6. 1, 2, 3, 4. So my quotient here is I did 4 groups of 1/6. So my quotient is 4. Okay, and so number 4 is asking us, how can we show the quotient of 4/6 divided by 1/6 with a bar model? So we used a number line. Let's go ahead and look at it in terms of sixths. So 4/6 is not 1 whole yet. So what we can do is we can draw, let's do green. So we know that we're working with sixths. So I'll do 1, 2, oops, let's do 3 first. We'll do 3, 1, 2, 3, and then cut those in half. And now we have sixths. They're not beautiful. You'll have to excuse my drawing. Okay, and then we have 4 of those. Okay, we have 4/6. Now we need to put them in groups of 1/6. So I know that each one of these is worth 1/6. So how many 1/6 do I have? Well, just like before, 4. So it's asking us, how is using a bar model similar to showing the quotient with a number line? Well, we're both looking at starting at 0 to 1 whole, but then when we're using a number line, if you can, let me just draw a line here. Let's see, sorry. Okay, so if I have a number line here, that's the same deal. I'm starting at 0 and 6/6. We're counting on, so we'll say 1/6, 2/6, 3/6, 4/6, and 5/6, right? So kind of the same thing, except we're counting on. This one is more looking at groups of 1/6, like unit fractions, but they are very similar. Some of our brains just work better using a tape diagram so that we can see those chunks that we're using, that we're coloring in. Other folks have an easier time saying, okay, I'm here at 4/6. How many hops do I need to go? Okay, so it really depends on which model works best for your brain. Do you need to see the chunks or do you need to see the hops? Okay, that's it for looking at the difference between of them. But then we're going to look at number 5, and number 5 should be done a little bit more independently. So we're looking at our dividend here, which is 10/8, right? And when I'm thinking about 10/8, I know that that's greater than 1 whole because 8/8 is 1, 10 is more than 8, so I'm going to have to draw 2 whole to represent that. So I'm going to go ahead and grab a bar model here. I'll make it a little long because we are showing eighths. And I'm going to lop this bad boy in half to show 2 whole. Okay. Ooh, that's not very even. Let's try this again. Mrs. Bowman is not very good at cutting into half. Okay, so we have 2 whole here. And then we know that we need to make it into eighths. So I'm going to cut it into half and then into fourths and then into eighths. So now I have eighths. And it says that I have 10 eighths. So I'm going to go ahead and fill in 10 of those. So 1, 2, 3. We know we're going all the way to 10, and a whole is 8. So I'm not going to count those for you. There's 8, 9, 10. So now it's wondering how many 1/4 are in 10 eighths. Well, what I need to do is I need to know what is an equivalent fraction for 1/4 to an eighth. So I'm just actually going to draw quickly a 1/4. Okay, so here's my little 1 whole. And we'll cut it into fourths. And there's 1/4, right? So I'll put 1/4 over here. Now we're going to make it into eighths by decomposing those. Now we have 8. How many of those are there? There's 2 eighths for every 1/4. So I know 1/4 is the same as 2 eighths. So that means when I'm looking on my model, I'm going to be grabbing 2, right? 2 eighths is the same thing as 1/4. So I have how many groups of 1/4 have I lumped together? Okay, so I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I know that there's 5 groups of 1/4 inside 10 eighths. Okay, so my answer here would be 5. Okay, so this one, really what we're doing is we're not really trying to do any multiplication. We're not looking at reciprocals. We're really just trying to understand, using a model, how can I show how I'm dividing these fractions into different parts? Okay.